The bottom had a stench to it, a stink of pigsties and stables and tanners' sheds, mixed in with the sour smell of winesinks and cheap whorehouses. The thoughts of Arya Stark, A Game of Thrones Chapter 65, Arya 5. When you look at any city in Westeros, it will naturally be divided up into districts of differing wealth and fortune. The rich and very well off will try to separate themselves from the common rabble of the city, walling themselves off in large manses on higher elevations, in the case of King's Landing, on the slopes of Visenya's and Rhaenys' hills, with the poorer small folk gathering in the shadows of the more affluent members of society, eking out a meagre existence, just trying to get by day to day, feeding themselves and their family the best they can. The existence of the poorest small folk is grim in Westeros, with hard choices having to be made daily, and to some, the idea of living in the urban squalor of a city is not an appealing idea. But what must be remembered is even the urban squalor have their advantages compared to other poorer members of small folk, perhaps living in the countryside, farming the land. Each has their drawbacks, with it being up to the individual to decide what elements they value more. While the same can be said for any of the cities in Westeros, the poorest area of King's Landing, known as Flea Bottom, is not just widely known up and down Westeros, but across the known world as well. Flea Bottom is by far the most downtrodden area of King's Landing, and has been for centuries, ever since the redevelopment of the city by King Jaehaerys I Targaryen, and perhaps even long before that. It is rife with poverty, and crime is such a common occurrence, most just turn a blind eye. Even the gold cloaks of the City Watch have a hard time managing the crime in the area, which is not helped by how insular the population of Flea Bottom has become. It is a maze of twisty, unpaved alleys and crisscrossing streets. It's very easy to get lost and find yourself in a dangerous spot, a gang-controlled area or a hotspot for pickpockets, waiting for an inexperienced newcomer to wander on by, often rich folk who have lost their way in the maze of Flea Bottom. The area itself sits just below the Street of Flour, on the way down the east side of Rhaenys' Hill. Despite being so close to the bakers of the Street of Flour, the air of Flea Bottom certainly does not smell of freshly baked bread. Many of the buildings of Flea Bottom that have been built since around 55 AC were meant to be temporary abodes, as the owners found necessary coin to improve their dwellings. But in the case of Flea Bottom, that never happened, and more hovels were built on top of each other, despite the work of King Jaehaerys to improve the layout and infrastructure of the city. The buildings lean over narrow alleys, almost touching, the air filled with the stench of pigsties and stables and tanners' sheds, mixed in with the smell of winesinks and whorehouses. Gamblers' dens and rat pits are also in huge number in Flea Bottom. A winesink is not your normal tavern, but often a pub often frequented by the rougher sort of patron, managed by gangs, and thus attracting criminal activity. They're usually seedy, unsavoury places of ill repute, and most godly and rich folk would be ashamed to be found in there. Whores can be found plying their trade in winesinks, but most would agree many of these whores are really preying on the drunks, hoping to rob them while they are indisposed. Winesinks primarily serve wine, but is also known to offer food, both of questionable quality. But as a result, the prices are very cheap compared to your normal tavern. They are also an excellent source of gossip, where master whisperers for the king, known to have spies in winesinks across the city. While there are winesinks in other areas of the city, most of them are located in and around Flea Bottom. Just like the winesinks, the whorehouses of Flea Bottom are just as awful and just as sad. While their services are of course cheap, they come with the similar risk of robbery, and most of all, disease and pox. There is a reason the rich frequent the more upmarket establishments. Another prominent feature of Flea Bottom is the rat pits, which exist in most cities in Westeros in some form, but none operate so openly as the rat pits of Flea Bottom, where even the City Watch will turn a blind eye to a lot of the criminal activity that occurs there. Rat pits serve as an unsavoury form of recreation for most of the poorer small folk inhabitants of the city. Rats are made to fight each other, or sometimes dogs are set on the rats to compete to see who can kill the most rats first. Many of the rat catchers that once worked at the Red Keep also competed in the rat pits. Spectators pay to watch, and also take bets on participants. Highborn men have been known to frequent the rat pits too. There are even some rat pits that are rumoured to host child fighting. Flea Bottom is known across the world for its infamous bowl of brown, a thick stew made by the pot shops of Flea Bottom. While similar meals are made in every city in the world, a bowl of brown is the most well known. It's often cooked for long periods of time, simmering potentially year after year inside huge tubs where it receives new ingredients while being constantly served to the poorest residents of the cities. Common ingredients include barley, carrots, onion, turnip, apple, and whatever pieces of meat its makers can get hold of or dare to include in it. In King's Landing, this commonly means locally caught fish. The meats vary according to each pot shop and how much you're willing to pay, but it's not uncommon for it to include the likes of pigeon, rat, and any other meat you can think of, especially the cheaper bowls of brown. Some have even been rumoured to use dead bodies of dubious origins. While it certainly likely is true, it's obviously a very uncommon occurrence. Typical bowls have a film of grease over it, and is mostly pieces of vegetables used as ingredients. If you're lucky enough to get meat in your bowl of brown, it's harder to identify, and most customers don't really want to try to. It's not wholly clear when the stew first came to prominence, but some form of it likely dates back to the era of the conquest as the city of King's Landing began to rapidly grow. It at least existed as of the Dance of the Dragons between 129 and 131 AC. According to the Fool Mushroom, the younger son of Lord Hornwood, and two of his companions may have ended up in a bowl of brown after disappearing from Flea Bottom in the aftermath of the dance. We also know that when he was young, Sir Duncan the Tall would sell pigeons and rats to pot shops in King's Landing. The formation of Flea Bottom is exactly as you would expect. King's Landing began as a booming town after the Targaryen conquest, but no one planned it, and thus it simply just grew. What started as Aegon Targaryen's initial foothold and stockade on the mainland mushroomed into a size so quickly and haphazardly that several slum districts developed, the largest and worst of which was of course Flea Bottom. 10 years after the conquest, King's Landing had reached the size of a true city, almost as large as Goldtown or White Harbour. 25 years after the conquest, it had outgrown them both, surpassed only by Lannisport and Old Town, which it would soon outgrow as well. It is unclear when the slum known as Flea Bottom first congealed out of the mud of this rushed expansion, but the earliest chronological mention of it is in 49 AC, and it's very likely Flea Bottom is the result of several smaller slums growing and merging into one huge slum. During the terrible winter of 59 AC, when the plague known as the Shivers struck Westeros, King's Landing was badly affected. So many of the City Watch died in the plague that the city outside the Red Keep itself was reduced to lawlessness and looting. The Master of Coin, Rhaego Draz, was killed in Flea Bottom during this time, ripped to pieces by an angry gang who cut off the gemstones with his dead fingers. During the early reign of King Viserys I, in 103 AC, the king put his younger brother, Daemon, in charge of the City Watch. Up until that point, they had been very poorly equipped and trained, an assortment of lazy and disorganized guardsmen, most not fit for the job, but Daemon updated and formed them into essentially a small private army, well trained while armed with uniform and armor, and a gold cloak, which gives them their names. Daemon led his gold cloaks on a brutal campaign to smash crime in Flea Bottom, and for a while it appeared to be effective, after which he would drink for free in its taverns, sampled whores for free in its brothels, and always won money in the gambling dens. This earned Daemon Targaryen the nickname Lord Flea Bottom, one he would both love and loathe. Just because you grew up in the slum of Flea Bottom doesn't mean you are doomed to spend your whole life in squalor and poverty. Sir Duncan the Tall, the legendary Kingsguard Knight and Lord Commander of the Kingsguard of King Aegon V, was born in Flea Bottom before becoming a squire to the hedge knight Sir Arlen of Pennytree, eventually becoming a hedge knight himself before becoming a member of the White Cloaks. Another case is that of Davos Seaworth, who was born in Flea Bottom before becoming a notorious smuggler. During Robert's Rebellion, he managed to smuggle food into the besieged Storm's End and effectively saved the life of Stannis Baratheon, who was holding the castle in his brother's name, with Stannis granting Davos a knighthood and land of his own as a reward, with Seaworth eventually becoming Stannis' Hand of the King during the War of Five Kings, as seen in the main book series. There are many other notable residents of Flea Bottom, such as Gendry, one of the bastard sons of King Robert Baratheon, as well as notorious criminals Rorge and Biter, among others.